Hi, this is Mary Rubino, and the show is Naturally Speaking, where we interview holistic practitioners and find out what they do and how they help. Last week, we went to Living Buddha Nature. We had a road trip. We had so much fun. And if you have a chance to check that episode out, I'd love to have you give us some feedback on that one. Today, we have Michelle Cordani, and Michelle is actually a yoga teacher, and she's a health coach, and her company is called Pure Intentions. So welcome, Michelle. I've been to your yoga class. It's excellent, but now I want to find out a little bit more about the health coaching.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
this is what I love to do, is spread the word of health and wellness. So thank you. So my journey started with the birth of my third son. Mm-hmm. I knew day 3 of his life that something wasn't right. We were came home on a Saturday night, and by Sunday morning we were in the emergency room with him.
Oh.
And because he was my third, I knew that this wasn't normal. And a doctor actually said to me, and a nurse, oh, you know, it's just, he's a newborn and things like this happen. But as a mother, you have that instinct that something's wrong. Thank God I had a pediatric doctor that listened to me. Mm-hmm. And we went through a series of, what would happen would be he would eat and scream for hours. I didn't sleep. And when it was time to, just before he was ready to be fed again, he would kind of settle down, and then food would start up again, and the whole process would go over and over. So as a mother, I just had this instinct that something wasn't right. And at the time, I was working in a family-owned business, and I had a client that said, would you be open to alternative medicine? And I said, I'd sell my soul right now if I knew that I could heal my son and get some sleep, because I was sleep deprived. So I went to this doctor, as my husband would say, my witch doctor, and she was wonderful. And what she brought to my attention was that we don't always fit in that traditional box. Mm-hmm. And he had been allergy tested and everything, and there was nothing. They did take some things away, but they also left some things. Mm-hmm. So she did some alternative things with him that people kind of, turned their nose up. But that night of the first day of him being on this new regimen, he stopped throwing up and stopped having digestive issues. Wow. Now, to say, did he sleep through the night or anything? No, there was still a long journey. Newborn, right? But I was actually sick when I was pregnant with him. Mm-hmm. And I had to take some antibiotics, which I fought. But the doctor at the time said, you have 2 choices. Mm-hmm. You have something growing inside you, and you have to make that decision, and it doesn't cross the placenta. Mm-hmm. What we found out was his good bacteria was never formed. Oh, so. Okay. Although scientifically, I don't know for sure, was that part of it, but to me, knowing that antibiotics can deplete, the good and the bad, I really truly feel that might have played an issue. So that woke me up to alternative medicine, and I found out that he has severe food allergies. Wow. Everything from the traditional peanuts to tree nuts, to wheat, eggs. He's got the egg whites, which is unusual, soy, shellfish, the whole gamut. Wow. And again, some of them he felt within the range, but his body still didn't like them. So I went down that road of healing his gut. And, we kind of played with it a little bit, because they said as they grow older, they could get better. Could grow out of it. And I did play with it for a little while, and he was still having some issues. So I've gone back to square one. Yeah. With him, and that's kind of what led me. Then I decided that I found myself in a grocery store crying, not knowing what I could feed my child. Like, peanuts is a really hard thing. You don't know, if it may contain peanuts, you don't know. And he's 12 now, so this was right before the chat rooms and all the support that you can have now. And I vowed that once I fixed him, I would bring that message out to the world and help somebody else that was struggling like myself.
That has got to be scary.
It is.
It's gotta be. I can't even imagine having a child that can't hold their food at a newborn age.
Yeah, it was
So when you went to this other alternative, what type of testing did they do that felt funny or seemed odd to you?
So she did muscle testing. Okay. So as a baby, she actually put him on my lap and put a magnet underneath him, and held my arm out. And, people can balk at it and say, your arm falls. We saw that work with Eileen.
Yeah,
and the whole bit. But it worked for him. And she said, you don't kind of quit smoking. If you have, an alcohol problem, you don't kind of quit drinking. It has to sometimes be the full spectrum. Yeah. So that's what, and then I started my business, Pure Intentions, as I created a label reading workshop and went out to moms groups and all these different groups and did it kind of as my advertising. You know, I did it for free and just went out and shared my message, and it got such a big response, and I love to be in front of people and inspire people that I also think that from there grew, there's a huge need out here. Traditional medicine needs to meet holistic. And everybody that met with me and I started working with people, I didn't have a degree in it, I have a business background, but they didn't care. They saw the passion and that's all they needed. But I thought if I'm gonna meld the two worlds together, I need to get some kind of schooling behind me. So with 3 young kids, I went to school at the School of Integrative Nutrition in New York. I did their first long distance program, and just my world just kept growing and growing from there, and I'm just always learning and always love to grow.
When you see the result, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I had switched to eating more unprocessed foods and whole foods, and the difference was crazy. Even I have arthritis in my hands, no pain there. It started to get, everything started to get so much better. The energy level grows and grows, and you're like, where did this come from? And it's really just what you're fueling your body with.
And that's how I liken it with my clients. I tell them you wouldn't put diesel fuel in a gas-powered engine. So why are you expected to put some of this processed food in your body and want it to run properly? You know, my passion is in obviously the nutrition, but disease prevention and reversal. We can take food and make it our medicine. They did it way back when.
They did do it a long time ago. And a lot of the cures they had back then, people are going back to now as though it were new. And it's obviously it's not, but we weren't in touch with that. You know, and people going to the store to take care of a cough when the cough could just go back where it came from.
Well, and that's the thing. So when you have fevers or coughs or runny noses or itching or acne or something that comes out in the skin, there's a source of it. It's not always where it comes out, but there's something wrong. So a lot of the things that are on the market is about symptoms. So how can we get rid of that symptom instead of how can we get to the root cause of it? So that's where my mission is for, is to find, like even knee pain. You can have knee pain, but that doesn't mean that's where the source is. That's where the inflammation is settling, but the source could be somewhere else. So let's get to what that problem is. And I have a lot of clients that come to me that have been to many doctors, and they just say they don't listen to me. They're not listening. I still don't feel good. And you know, within weeks of working with me, their bloat is gone, or their brain fog is gone, or their energy level's up. And again, it's about finding the root cause and finding out, again, we do testing. I can go through their lab work. I'm not one, I don't diagnose. That's not my job to diagnose anything. I want to make that clear. But I can look at lab work and see that things can be skewed. So I want my clients to be optimal. And we have ranges, which is exactly what happened to my son. He fell within that range. Well, that range is really being compared to everybody else in America that's ill. And if they're low or high sometimes, you want them to be optimal. So it's not good enough just to be in that range. You need them to be where they need to be. So I like to take my clients from where they are to where they want to be. And I'm thankful that I can sit with them. My appointments are usually an hour long, you know, anywhere from 50 minutes to an hour, and I can hear what they're really saying. And then we can go. It's like, I liken it to a puzzle on my desk, and I don't have the picture. So we have to put pieces in and see what works for that person, and maybe try it for a couple weeks. And if it doesn't work, we take that piece out and we put another piece in. And that's the really neat thing. I'm not trying to put a square peg into a round hole, which again, what they did with my son, because we're all bio-individual. If you and I were the same height and weight, it doesn't mean that we would have the same little subscription, right, or prescription. And that's kind of where all these people are being led down that path.
I think medicine, on average, I mean, you look at it, it is a practice, and they really, you know, they're doing the best they can with what they know, and it's very, very generic in a lot of ways. And then when you're meeting with people and you're talking to them, and I know that this happens to me too, they're saying something and you're hearing something else. You know, like someone be telling you that they're stressed, and you're hearing, well, they haven't slept in a long time, and once their body starts to get into a pattern or a routine, they'll start to feel better. So it may just be other things other than what they're thinking it is.
Exactly. So it's the functional or the holistic approach. That's where that comes in.
Yeah.
It's finding the interconnectiveness. Your gut is your immune system. 2/3 of your immune system is in your gut. So if that's out of balance, it can throw your whole systems off. So it's really about looking at, what are the symptoms, but what are the root causes and where could they be coming from? I have brain fog, or I have bloating, or I have pain after I eat, or I have, low energy, or I can't sleep at night. Where does that come from? That's not just about here's a pill so that you can sleep, or, here's this so you can do this. It's really truly about, well, let's look at your labs and let's see what they say, and let's look at the symptoms and match them.
Look at what you're eating.
And let's look at their
And
diet.
some people, it's funny because sometimes people are in a pattern for so long, that's like the new normal, and they feel like, and then they start to get better, and it's like, whoa, where did the energy come from? Or I feel better in my mind, I feel better in my body. And I got to touch on this because I was looking at your wheel. Now, when you sit with people, you don't just deal with the food aspect at all. You want to just talk about this wheel you got here?
Yes.
It's fascinating.
So if you were to come with me, to me, and have symptoms, I would sit you down and I would explain what's different about working with Pure Intentions. And part of what's working with Pure Intentions is this wheel. And the wheel is about life. It's your creativity, or your finances, or your career, or your spiritual being, or your relationships. That's what life is all about. And that's really, in my world, what your primary foods are. Your secondary foods are what you put in your mouth. And although they're very important, it's really about mind, body, and spirit. And I have a lot of clients that come to me, and I liken it to driving a car. And I say, your subconscious has been in your driver's seat for so long. And what I want you to do is kick him or her out, and you to take over. You are now in the driver's seat. So when you have that chatter in the back of your head, you need to say, that was the old, I'm in charge. And I teach them about what they tell themselves and the stories that might come through with that, and how to really be present. We're not present. We're running our kids here and there, or to the next job, or how to make our bills, or whatever, and we're not truly sitting down and really engaging in our primary foods, and sitting and taking the time to eat properly either. And so I teach people how that doesn't have to be really hard to do. Going through the fast food drive-through is not really the answer. That you can do a lot of things, a little bit of prep, but it doesn't. It takes just as much as it would be to drive through a drive-through.
And a lot healthier too.
And a lot healthier. So if someone came to me, I have a 7-page sheet that they fill out, and it's a health history with, they can attach their labs to it. It's also a symptom sheet, and they find when they go through it that they find a lot about themselves, because again, they're not present a lot of the times. So they'll say, oh, I didn't realize this started when I had an operation, or this started back when I had high stress.
Or I was put on medication for allergies, and it was at the same time I started doing whatever it is, XYZ.
And I have a lot of clients that come to me, and they're their label. Their ADHD, or their autoimmune, Crohn's, or lupus, or whatever, or MS, and they become their label. And I say, you don't need that. You're not that label.
Well, that's not unusual at all for people to attach their problem as though it were them. That happens a lot, especially with illness. So that's where the subconscious and affirmations come in play. That if they keep telling themselves that they are, their disease, then they are going to be their disease. But if they tell themselves, and I teach them how to do affirmations, sometimes it comes from the past. And I love Louise Hayes and this workbook I do with my clients. Sometimes if it needs to be, to just dive in and heal whatever is underneath the surface. There's a lot of your beliefs have a huge impact on where your life goes. And those can come from just as a child. So.
And as far as the other books that I share with people, sugar, it's a huge buzzword now. And sugar can be as addicting as drugs can be. And it gets in our body, and the marketing that has come to us, we believe what's told to us. And we don't understand how addicting that can be. And high fructose corn syrup is the big the big,
Yeah,
you know,
I
well,
wanna say
actually,
that,
I
yeah.
even almost think it's past that now, because what happens is while we're out there educating people of what does high fructose mean, what does that really mean to you, and they change the words. So
There's a whole bunch of words that represent the same thing with that, isn't
exactly.
there?
Sugar has thousands of different words. And so one of the books I recommend is not only why is it making us sick, but I also do a label reading workshop that teaches people how to truly read. So in the front it might say there is no high fructose corn syrup in the ingredients, but you flip it over and it's because it's a new word. So it actually is in the product in some cases. So I teach people what to look for. It's not really, most people go to the sodium content or how many calories are in it, and although that's all stuff that we can work through, you really need to know where's your product coming from, how is it made?
Now, wouldn't you most likely recommend, though, whole foods, right? Like fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and grass-fed meat if you're going to eat meat or something like that. So you have an idea of the origin, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So what I do is when they come to me, I have to meet the clients where they're at. So label reading is really important, and then slowly get through to maybe we don't even need to go down that road.
Right.
That, you know, if you eat whole foods, there are no ingredient labels. But it's true, then you also need to know where it's coming from.
Exactly, and I saw you a little clean and dirty over here.
Yep.
The clean 15 and the dirty dozen. There's a lot of things you have to be careful of because they're sprayed so much.
Exactly, and a lot of people say to me, I can't afford to be healthy. And so I'll teach them how to do things on a budget, but I also tell them that you won't understand that until it comes to you, but you really can't afford to be ill because it costs you a lot. And I have a lot of clients that come to me now that really realize that. Yeah. And if I told them that before, they wouldn't understand that.
Yeah, and when you get sick, and that's when you reach out. Like when your son was sick, that's what prompted you.
Exactly.
And it always seems as though there's something that facilitates it. There's something that it comes from. You know, you hit a wall. I've mentioned this before in the show. You hit a wall or someone around you, and it just raises that flag, like, what's going on? Why is this happening?
Right.
What can I learn from it?
So my mission is to teach people to be proactive and not reactive, which that's really what we're a society of, is being reactive to a symptom. But if we really teach people to kind of go back to what our ancestors did and really be proactive with our life, I'm not saying that no one's ever going to get sick, but they are definitely going to prevent things from happening. And I was that same person. I know that Christopher has the issues he does today because I wasn't healthy. And I was sick every February. I would end up in the emergency room on IVs, deathly ill, and knock on wood, since I started down this path, I have made it through 12 Februaries without being ill. Now, I'm not saying that I never get sick, but my illnesses are a lot less between.
And it's funny you would say that because some people will say that every certain time I get sick, and it's like self-fulfilling prophecy. Every that time of year they do get sick, and they're expecting it, and probably the behaviors haven't changed at all, and you know, and we're not making anyone wrong for what they do. We're just trying to raise that awareness. So if you're looking for a better way to feel, better way to live, and it is a whole body approach, we need to address it with the food and the thoughts and the behaviors that can really make the difference for you. So I like to see that you're doing all this together because it is really important. You can't just do one part, you know, it just can't, because
so
it doesn't
it's about mind, body, spirit, and that's where yoga came into play. So although I'm always learning, I'm in a functional medicine certificate program right now, so I'm always looking for the next new thing because things are changing so frequently, and what's important and what's coming up next. But at the same time, I knew that I wanted to incorporate something else into my business to support my clients. And my perception of yoga way back when was, you know, like that's, who wants to hold a pose for a half an hour, or, you know, it's very slow, or what can that do for me? And meditate, my mind's going too fast, I can't meditate. And so I had a really good friend that said, oh, you have to join this class. And I thought to myself, where am I going to put this in? And I am so glad I did, because it definitely is a great addition to my practice, and being able to empower people to, again, take time for themselves and be able to stop time and be able to, what I do a little different than some of the other yoga classes is it's all about protecting your back and really rolling into a pose and honoring yourself. And so that's what my students really enjoy.
I gotta say, I went to your class up at Heart Song Spirit Wellness Center, and I was very, very impressed. And I'll tell you why, because when people are learning something new, they always need that encouragement. And every little thing I was trying, even if I wasn't doing it really great, you're right there making me feel as though I was capable. And I think that makes a huge difference. And I felt really great after the class too. I didn't feel, like I didn't do everything right or anything. There's no, because you're so good. Oh, that's great. You're doing great. And it felt good. It felt really good to be able to be the new kid and not feel without.
Well, it's hard to go into a big class and have never been there or only been there a few times and not really, they're kind of looking at to their right or left or looking at the teacher. So what I market myself is taking them from the ground up. You need to learn foundation. So I encourage people who even might be an intermediate to come back and just learn the form from the ground up.
Right.
And really it's, again, all about the core. If you have your core, then you can protect the rest of your body.
Yeah. And being able to eat well creates that solid foundation, and then you go from there.
Yeah.
And the exercise is great. And it was I gotta say, it was a really great class. And if you can touch on when you're there exactly.
Yes. So Heart Song is an amazing organization, which I know you did a taping with Donna Moran, who's amazing.
Yes.
We're so fortunate to have her, and I'm so glad that I got to meet her. So I'm there Tuesdays at 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
And Saturday mornings, I believe it is 7:30 now, but I think we're going to change it to 8. And then I also do Tuesdays at 12:15 and Thursdays at 7:05 in Ashland at Focus on Fitness.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, and I do privates and semi-private. Sometimes girls get a bunch of women together and they just do kind of a girls' night out.
Now that would be a little different than eating crappy food and drinking a lot of wine, right?
Yeah, and so I really enjoy that. And I'm also doing a workshop. I believe it's April 13th at Hot Song, and that's going to be my label reading workshop.
Good. I think I'll have to take that because I'd like to learn a little bit more about what to look for, because it is very deceptive.
It is. And reality is people are going to eat some processed stuff, so they might as well learn, what to really look for. I don't like to say good and bad. It's whole and broken, so of course I want them to have whole foods.
Right.
But it's going to come up, so it's important for them to understand where their food comes from and what does it mean to be GMO or non-GMO, and so because that goes into your fruits and stuff like that. So very important. I also do whole food tours. I'm doing one March 30th.
Okay. To put that on my calendar too.
So that
I walk in there and I'm like, okay, I have
it's
no
overwhelming.
clue.
And again,
it really
they need
is.
to know that not everything is perfect there as well. So they need to know, we spend a lot of time in the fruit and produce department and just what is it, these different things and what can they do for my body? Because again, it's about fueling your cells. And you're only as good as what you can absorb. Everybody says you are what you eat, but you truly are what you can absorb. So it's important to know not only what, if I eat greens, which we're all very deficient in, what does that do for my body? And am I getting what I'm supposed to be getting? So that's where sometimes lab work comes in too.
Yeah. Now, do you recommend supplementing, or you stay clear of that?
So again, it's not that you come to me and I throw supplements at you. It would be looking at the whole unique body. But our food supply, our soils are so depleted now that I'm finding that a lot of people are deficient in a lot of things. And so if the need comes in, absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, you have to have top quality supplements or you're just throwing your money away.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. And I suppose if a lot of what you do is helping people just navigate all these things, because you're well versed in it, the average person certainly is not. So you're like our tour guide.
Exactly, because an overwhelmed mind shuts down. So that's exactly what I want them to do, is not be overwhelmed, because I was that person when I went into a grocery store, or when you look at supplements, there's just so many on the market. So you
really
heard,
don't know,
right, what's this? Like, if you take a brand name and, you heard they have commercials about it, so that must be good for me. But again, they don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, the other thing too is you really need to check with a doctor or a specialist to find out, is this really the right thing for you to do at all? And that has to be checked by your blood work. I know, I remember taking stuff and I started doing the Whole Foods. My doctor said, you don't have to do any of these particular things I was doing anymore. At the time it made sense, but when I went back to her, it wasn't necessary anymore.
So I always recommend they check with their doctor. But again, a doctor will a lot of times tell you that they're not educated in exactly what it's all about and what does it mean for your body. So definitely I recommend first, but usually it's the education. So I don't tell you to take a specific thing, I give you an education around what might be good for you and what it does for your body.
Right.
So instead of directing it to someone, it's really teaching them what does it do for you or what could it do for you, and then playing with it.
Now, when I first met you, all I knew you was that you did yoga, and I asked you to come on the show, and I'm like, then I find out, and I'm like, wow, that's really great that you encompass everything like that. So what's the next thing for you?
I don't know. There's so many. I know. There's just, and that's the thing. I'm always looking for the next best thing for my clients to broaden my knowledge. Because it just changes so much. But I can honestly say that my message to people are, if you intuition, because everything you have is inside you. You just have to know how to tap into it. So if you're sick of being sick all the time, or not feeling optimal, you know, some of the symptoms, like I said, are brain fog, bloating, pain sometimes, fatigue, headaches. I've healed, I've reversed pre-diabetes. I've helped people's blood pressure, taken their numbers down. Again, I don't recommend, I work with doctors, I don't say take yourself off medication, but the doctors have been able to lower, or in some cases taken their patients off of medication because they reverse their diseases.
Well, as your body gets fueled better, it can start to heal itself much easier, right? So,
and that's what we don't tap into enough lately.
And the other thing too is, like you said, the intuition part of it, because sometimes you have that little voice in the back of your head. It's telling you, yeah, that's not your best idea, and yet you don't listen. So it really is important.
Or they go to a doctor or wherever, to their health care, and they're not heard because they have a 15-minute appointment. So that's not their fault, and it's not the doctor's fault. It's really our healthcare system that's really broken. And so they leave there not really feeling like they were heard, of no fault to the doctor. And so, then they get recommended to me, and they can sit down, and I can, you don't have anxiety. You truly don't have anxiety. It's coming from, whatever. It's real to you, but it's something we can heal. Or the bloating can go away, or the brain fog can go away, or the head migraines. You don't have to live with it the rest of your life. I've been able to take that away from people and empower. I had someone email me just recently and said, I feel so free. You freed me from counting calories and points, and I can just be, I have more energy, I've lost weight without, truly dieting, and dieting has been my whole life. And come to tears with me in my sessions a lot of the times, because they finally have their body back and their life back. I mean, wives that have emailed me feel like they're cheating on their husbands because they're sleeping with a new man now because, he's lost a lot of weight and reversed his...
And he feels better.
And he feels better, and he's reversed, whatever condition he's had. So that, to me, is very empowering.
And the idea that you're touching on how people are thinking as well, because that's a huge part of the problem.
Right down to children, too.
I know.
A lot of these kids have a lot of pressures on themselves, and they really need to learn that whatever you're feeling is a true feeling, but there's another answer to it. And once you shut down that subconscious and feed your brain the way you should feed it, not only with food, but also with your thoughts.
Well, subconscious is something that a lot of people don't have any control over. They don't know how much control they have at all when it comes to that. It's like we always do what we always did, and it creates those little ruts, and people have to learn how to climb out of those. Yeah, very important, though.
It is. And knowing that there's an answer, and knowing that there's someone they can turn to for that answer.
And everyone needs an audience. Everyone needs someone that they can turn to and say, I'm having these issues, and I really don't know what to do about it, and I'm not sure if there's something I'm missing, that you might be able to fill in that blank. And I love the idea that you have such a comprehensive plan to help people work through all their issues with this. Very important, very important. I'm so glad you could come today, too.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I
And
enjoyed it.
we'd love to have you come back. Now, any other classes you got coming up that you want to give a plug to? Or?
Just the, at Heart Song on April 13th and the Whole Foods on March 30th. And I'll do a night one, too, if I have enough.
Yeah.
So they can reach me at mypureintentions.com.
Okay.
Or mypureintentions@gmail.com.
Okay.
Either one of those.
Good,
I'm
good,
just
all right.
revamping my website, so I'm pretty sure it's up and running. But
Well, those will
My Pure
probably be
Intentions.
queued up on the
Yeah.
on the screen when we do when it comes live on the interview. When it comes on Facebook, because luckily Ken edits some things. So yeah, but that'd be great though. I think people need to have a really well-rounded approach to their life. I mean, it isn't just one thing.
Right.
It's always everything.
It is. It is. All the puzzle pieces need to fit together, and it needs to be for your unique body as well. So it's like when you're on a yoga mat, I always tell my students, right, you don't look to the right and you don't look to the left.
No.
It's not always greener on the other side. It's the same thing when they come to me. It's about their unique body, not about, their brother or their sister or their mother.
Yeah.
Or, you can turn your genes on and off too, which people say, I have X, Y, and Z because my parents have it.
No,
And
that's not
always the
necessarily the
case.
truth. Yeah.
Exactly.
I know that too from experience. That things that are in your family could be things that behaviors that were learned that create a certain type of illness that's going to be reoccurrent in the family, but only because the behaviors are repeated over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice to be able to have you break that spell and help people feel better.
It's been very fun road that I'm on.
Yeah.
And I look forward to touching some more lives. I love to do corporate presentations. I've done, as I said before, a lot of moms groups. I've just got asked to do a series possibly for homeschooling, which I've done in the past.
Oh, that'd
as
be
well.
really good, yeah.
So it's just really getting that message out.
Oh, maybe even having a cable show.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, really.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so much to learn
really
with
is.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone should do a cable show. It's just so much fun.
It is.
And people get to learn things each time they come on. And
Exactly.
And we're always learning stuff here.
And you never know what life you're going to touch just by having a conversation or saying something, about, how many times I just got a text the other day and they're like, please help me. I'm, really addicted to sugar and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get off it, or you can do, from my workshops, I just say one word. It's just one buzzword that just all of a sudden makes that connection to them and they're like, oh my gosh, maybe
Yeah,
she
to
can
have
help
a
me.
solution is really important.
Exactly.
And to feel as though there is something out there that can help, or some people out there that can help. And it's good that
Exactly.
you're doing this because, and I'm glad that, it's sad that it was your son's, the prompting through your son, but
know.
you never know why these things happen.
But the big joke was, he came into my world for a reason. And, not only because I have 3 beautiful boys, but because this was my mission. This was everybody's born, as I'm sure you know, right? To have a purpose, and this is definitely my purpose.
Yeah, and it's nice your son led you there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. We will definitely have you come back on again and maybe just focus in on one of the areas.
Sure.
But today we got a really well-rounded look at what you do. So thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Yep.